No, too.
Oh, no.
You're live.
Yep, I'm live. All right. Welcome, everybody, to the 12-week, 8th annual 12-week challenge. Our first keynote speaker this week is Jaden Cox. He is a two-time gold medal champion, gold medal world champion. Maybe my words straight. And Olympic bronze medalist. He has an amazing and powerful story to share with you. A few housekeeping notes before we actually get started. Make sure that you are on mute. If you have a question, Jaden would love to answer it during his time here. Just type it in the chat and I'll make sure he gets your question. And just enjoy the hour and I'll bring in Jaden. So.
You can introduce me again. That's
I
okay.
can introduce you.
You watched the first one, we might as well do it again.
Two-time world champion, gold medalist, and Olympic bronze medalist. There we go. You were awesome.
Oh, I'm excited to be here. That's awesome. Well, thank you guys for having me. Once again, Jaden Cox. I have a few wrestling accolades, but it's not what we're here to talk about today. Today, we're here to talk about, and I believe it was emotional trauma, and how that, to me, kind of leads into self-sabotage. And so I really wanted to start off by telling you my story. And it's a hard one. It's the one that's been taking me years to get comfortable with to tell people. But, you know, you see here, you know, a handsome, go happy, lucky guy, you know, in front of you. Yes, I'm very humble. I should put that out there. You know, yeah, I'm humble. But you see here, you know, a guy who's, you know, kind of happy-go-lucky, has a lot of accomplishments, but really struggled to find, you know, joy in my own life and his own life, and wanted to, you know, really figure out what that meant and what that carried for myself, you know. So, you know, my life starting out was not that great. You know, I had a great mom, I had a great dad, had a great family, but there were things that happened in my life that had transpired that really changed me, especially growing up. So when I was young, actually from the age of 7 to when I was 9, I was actually taken advantage of. And I had a lot of terrible things happen in my life at that moment in time. And I remember at that time that, you know, a lot of things happened in my mind, you know, thinking things were my fault, thinking things could never change, that I didn't deserve certain things. And in fact, I would evade things, or I would downplay who I was or the things I was capable of doing. I think from that experience as well. And so as I grew older, those things actually kind of grew, you know, and so it grew into things like my relationships, how I would, you know, pander to those people or stay away from certain people, being like, I'm not good enough for this or that. It would go into my wrestling even though I would win wrestling events, like I would win, I would like hold back. I would hold back because I'm like, you know, I'm not allowed, or I shouldn't be this good. I can't have this. There was a sense of almost, I would say like emptiness, but also like shame with being the best that I could be. And I didn't know how to, let alone talk about it, but really feel about it. And there was so much confusion and anger and sadness. And I just wanted to figure out, you know, what was wrong. And so I remember actually stuff really didn't start to hit me really hard until I got into college, though, because I was pushing everything down. You know, I'd push stuff down and I'd be like, you know, like I'll deal with it tomorrow. And then tomorrow came to be like, well, I meant tomorrow after today. And then, you know, keep pushing it off. But when I got to college, things just started to erupt on their own. You know, I couldn't, there would be times where I wouldn't sleep. Fun fact, I don't sleep very often now. I think it's more of something that happened as I grew up. But I would stay up for nights at a time. The longest I've ever stayed up at one time is 5 days. I've stayed up for 5 days straight. I wouldn't sleep. I would have these night terrors. I would have these outbursts of anger or of sadness, times where I couldn't talk to my friends, be around my family. I couldn't do it. And so I remember like that really affected me, because what do you do when you have these struggles? Typically you look for comfort. You know, that's what people look for. And sometimes we find comfort in the worst things. Like we find comfort in maybe the drink. We find comfort in maybe just in sex. We find comfort in many different things. We look to things that will make us, things that will only feel this way for a split second. And so, that's kind of transpired for me, and I started, diving into those things, into those wells that were not fulfilling. I felt were withholding a problem that was just continuing. I remember I woke up that I was having, and what I loved to do, I love to drive. I would drive all the time. I had a Nissan Blue. At the time, it was the coolest car I ever bought. It was like the coolest thing ever. I was like, oh, I got a Nissan. Searching for what cars in the world. So I got my Nissan, started driving, and I was driving around. And I remember in my head, I was thinking, about everything that happened in my life, everything I had been going through. I was thinking about all the times, from not only when I'm young, but the things I've gone through from, finding new ways. Like I would taking, pills, pill pop, self-harm, things like that. Like even how having so many people around me and yet not connected to any one of them. I've won titles. I've won 4 state titles in high school. I won 3 national titles in college, but like having all these people and giving you praise and yet not able to seem to really receive it and accept it. And so I remember I'm driving around, I'm thinking about this and how alone I really truly felt. And I drove out to my old house where my parents moved about a few years ago. I drove out to my old house and I parked my car and I'm sitting in my car and I'm kind of losing, it felt like I was losing my mind. And it felt like, and all I could think right then in that moment was, I don't want to be here. Like Jaden Cox shouldn't be a thing today, or ever again. And so I remember I walked down, and we used to have this kind of valley that had a highway that would cut through it. I walked down to this valley, and I'm standing on the side of this highway, and I'm pacing back and forth. And I'm in that moment, it was very interesting because in that moment I was almost trying to convince myself that this was okay. This is what I wanted. This is what it needed to be. This is how I wanted then to be, and this is how I get free of everything. And so then I remember I'm pacing, and finally at this time, I convinced myself this is what's going to happen. I step up to the line on this highway, and the semi-truck to pretty much come by, I was just going to jump in front of it. As simple as that. And then right at the moment I step up to the line, I get a call, and it's my trainer, athletic trainer. His name is Shane Bishop. He actually just had a birthday, so wish him happy birthday. But he called me up, and he's like, "Hey, Jaden, just calling and wanted to know if you're all right," because it was about 6:30. Practice is at 6, and I wasn't at practice. And I remember he said, "You all right? What's going on? Are you on your way here?" And I fell to my knees, and and I start crying. And I just tell him, I'm begging him, I just need help. There was nothing else to say. I just kept repeating over, I just need help. I just need help. And I kept crying. He's like, "Well, where are you?" And finally I told him where I was, and I walked back up to my car. He's like, "Go back to your car." I walk up to my car, and my coach comes out, and he's like, he's talking to me. He's like, "What's going on?" And at the time, obviously, I can't really express what's happening because I'm not comfortable to. In all honesty, parts of me really don't even know what's happening. And so I remember they took me to try to think to the mental ward actually on campus. And I stayed there for about 2 weeks, in which case I got picked up from Mike Ironman, my kids club coach, and I lived with him. And, he would listen to me. He took me back, and he would listen to me, and I one person I felt comfortable with, and I told him these stories, things that it was really hard for him to accept some of these things because this guy loves me. This is my kids club coach. He taught me everything. He knows everything about me, right? And so he thought. And so I'm opening up a new can of things that are all new to him, that are hard for him to have to accept. And I'm telling him all these things. And he's like, "Well, whatever you need, I'm going to do it for you. You can live here. We'll figure it out." And then in which case, I started seeing my therapist. And she really helped me with a lot of things. And one of the things I definitely wanted to touch on today was, prepare yourself for the truth so you might better accept it. And that's both for things that are positive and that are negative. And so I remember I was speaking with her for many years. I spoke to her all through my college career. I still talk to her every now and then now. But I remember, a big thing that she had to convince me of was that it was okay that I was there in the first place. Because I go in there, I'm not gonna lie, I was pretty much like a macho guy. I'm like, therapy, get off me, I don't need therapy. What are you talking about? Like, I've been fine. Like, I'm fine through my years. I'm winning titles and all this stuff. And I remember she was like, like, it's okay to be here. Like, our first few sessions, that was what it was about. Being okay, being in therapy. And I was just like, this is stupid. It's not okay to be here. If I'm in here, that means I have a problem. She's like, well, you're not wrong on that, but like, it's okay to come and talk and ask for help. And that was something I always struggled with, like, just asking people, like, will you help me? Like being able, like, I think in therapy, there are a lot of lessons that I learned as far as just being a man in general, and also just being a human being. Like, especially like when it comes to being a man itself, like just being able, like, I can ask for help. There's this false, there's this false reality we have, especially I'm amongst men, that you don't have to have, show a chink in the armor. And I think for many years, I had done that for so long and not showing the chinks that eventually, whatever was poking and prodding at me stabbed through, and it got me to the point where I was. And, I remember talking with her. And another big thing, obviously, was, showing that it wasn't my fault, that things weren't my fault, and getting through issues and how to change my thinking with myself, and also thinking how I thought about others in relation to myself, not just I'm not good enough, I can't be here, I can't do this, I'm just gonna push it away. And it really made me have to understand how I wanted to live out my life. And I think a big thing was knowing that I couldn't live backwards. I kind of have this saying right now that I've been alive for 25 years, but I've only lived for 7 of them. And that was because for so long I lived in the past and reliving the past in the same day over and over and over again. And, there's still hardship to this day. There's some nights where I still struggle to sleep. There are some days in a row that I don't. There are times I have night terrors. And it's not like the battle is like, there's like, oh, I can tell you this and there's going to be this cure and you're going to be fine. There's nothing I can tell you like that. It's going to be simply, this is a fight, and are you willing to fight it and do the right things to overcome it, and to reach out and to be vulnerable to those who can be strong for you. I think that's a big thing that I had to learn and pick up to get where I am today. And I feel like that's a good spot to stop and take questions so we can move forward. But yeah, I just wanted to share that and talk with you guys more on things and expand on things as well.
Wow, that's an amazing story.
No, well, thank you.
Thank you for sharing.
Yeah, it's been. I remember the first time I told that story. I actually was in Mexico, Missouri. I went to a church, and it was the first time I had given my testimony. And I actually told the story, then left the church and vomited. True story. Jaden Cox vomits, all right? So yeah, I actually just went outside and just hurled. So it's come a long way. Like, even talking about it was something that I was struggling a lot to do. And now to the point where I understand the message that I have and the strength of the message that I have to not only tell people, but to help people through whatever they're going through. And that's really a testament to everyone else that's been a part of my life and in my life to help me get to this point.
Couple of questions. Aiden asked, do you find working out helps?
Oh, definitely. Definitely. I think finding things that help, that are healthy for you, are good. But the moment that thing becomes your identity is whenever that thing needs to change, or that thing you have to really deal with the problem. Because in reality, like, things like that can help with certain moments, you know, like, so if I couldn't sleep one night, like, I'd go on a run, you know, or I couldn't sleep, or I would go and wrestle with somebody, you know, I'd go do something. But you can't allow that to be the solution, you know. Definitely can be something to help, but don't let it be a solution. Like for me, believe it or not, I still wrestle, but wrestling was the solution for me. When I stepped in the circle, nothing else mattered. Nothing else mattered except me and beating this guy, and wrestling and enjoying it, because it's the one place that I could remember that I was free, that no one could take advantage of me, no one could touch me, no one could hurt me, no one could do anything to me, you know. And so I would go and I'd win these titles, and I'd win state, I'd win championships, you know. I do all these things. You know, it's kind of like the difference between joy and happiness. Happiness is a moment, and joy is an overall appreciation in life, you know, and a fulfillment of life, you know. Whereas I'd be happy in that moment. Yeah, I win a title, I win a match, I'd be happy. But then as soon as that kind of dwindled away, you get a day away, another day away, it would just fade away, and I'd be right back to where I was. So I think finding stuff to help is good, but using those things as a solution is unhealthy.
Another question. I guess, is it, I'm not sure how to pronounce the name. I guess your coach's name was?
Mike Iron.
Okay, just making sure I pronounce it right. What about Iron made you comfortable enough to go to him and live with him?
So, well, I'll give a little backstory on that. So Mike and I met when I was about 9 or 10. And, you know, he was just a guy who helped me out a lot. And I think a big thing was he was one of the first few people, and I know this is going to sound crazy, and I'll say it like this because I don't want to make it seem like my parents weren't around or good, but parents sometimes seem to miss things, you know, with kids. And it's not necessarily because they're not paying attention. It's because, you know, some things are hard for parents to accept. Like I remember when I told my parents what had happened, it was really hard for them to accept that. And honestly, to believe that, not because they really truly didn't believe me, but because no parent wants to, you know, accept or know that that's happened to their child, you know. And plus, in today's world, the world we live in, we are busy. We have lives, you know. I mean, that's just who we are. That's just how it works. So I remember I met Mike when I was 9 or 10, and he was the first person to really show me he truly believed in me, you know. And honestly, like that I could see and tell and experience that he wanted what was best for me. And that's something I had not really experienced before. I hadn't experienced somebody genuinely, you know, caring about you. And I think at some point, I don't know what it was, but like just the way he talked and the way he took over the room and the way that he like, you know, poured into me with, and not wanting anything back either. Like he's the one reason I would say that I'm still wrestling today, because my parents, we were poor. We didn't have money, you know. Money is important in today's world apparently, but you know, but like we didn't have money, and he's told my parents, you don't have to pay it down. All right, I just want Jaden to have fun wrestling, and I got to come to Ironman Elite Wrestling Club for free, and to wrestle and compete. And so like I think those things kind of like turned me to him, and then plus we talked so much, and we traveled the country together, like, and you know, I really got to dive into not only who he was, but you know, also kind of listen to who I was. But at the same time, you know, he didn't force his way into my life. You know, he allowed me to allow him into my life. And I think that kind of, you know, turned the narrative in our relationship, especially when it came to this moment, to have someone that I trusted, that wanted the best for me, that saw the things that I could really, truly do, and be not just as a wrestler. I mean, that was a big thing. Like, he never just said, hey, you're going to be a great wrestler. He was like, no, wrestling's just your foot in the door. Like, you're going to be able to do so many more things. You're going to be, if you want to do politics, which I don't want to do politics. So if you want to do politics, if you want to do, music, whatever it is you want to do, you can do it. And I think that those experiences through the years and the friendship and bond that we created, he actually kind of turned into another father figure for me. Made that so I felt more comfortable. And plus, on top of that, I think another reason I didn't tell my parents was because I didn't want them to hurt as much as I already was. I didn't want them to feel the pain that I was already feeling. Especially because, like, I knew what telling them would do to them, and I knew that it would hurt them. And with all the shame and the things I was already feeling, I didn't know if at the time I could really take that. And so it was really difficult. I mean, still to this day, I've told my parents what happened. I've never told them a detail for what happened. And I don't know if I ever will be able to have that conversation with them or be to that point, because one, I don't know if I can personally reopen those wounds, not only for myself but for them as well. But I think, Mike was just someone that was just the perfect combination of being genuine, being strong, having belief in someone, and allowing me to kind of navigate the relationship. It was almost like he was a therapist, but without like lecturing me. Therapist minus the lectures, like allowing me to come to him and choose when I was open and whatnot. And I think with that relationship, when it really came time to who I wanted to be around and what I needed, I knew what I needed and who I wanted to be around was him.
Another question was, when you have trouble sleeping now, what do you do?
Well, that's a struggle. Sometimes I just stay up and I do work. So when I'm awake, I'm doing everything. I think that's why, like, some people like I say, like, you're very multi-talented. It's because I tell people this and they think I'm joking. It's like, well, because I'm up a lot of the time. And they're like, what do you mean? I'm like, well, I stay awake. So like I would do things why do you think I can play 5 instruments? You got a lot of time, spare time, when you stay up all night. I would do stuff like that. I would play music. Sometimes I would just clean or just get things done to prepare for the next day. And then obviously, like, there are times where I try to go back to sleep where I'll take a warm shower or a bath, or, maybe get a glass of milk or something like that, and then try to do that. But I think the big thing is for me, at least that I know, is how I felt during it. That's what I really try to pay attention to. Because initially I wouldn't go to sleep because I was afraid to go to sleep. I was afraid to go to sleep because of the things that I would see or I would experience. Like, to have what has happened to you replay over and over again, and you feel it. You feel every bit of it. And there are some nights where I go to sleep and I'm going through that, and I know that. And when I wake up, at first there's maybe a little panic. There's a little bit of trying to, remember where you are and what's really here, what's real, what's now. And then on top of that, I think a big thing is I then tell myself, that, I'm okay. And I write down either like what I feel. Sometimes I write down poetry. I write everything. There's nothing that I don't write. And I get everything out and I put it on paper. Because when I do that, one, it excludes myself from turning to other things, because it requires my full attention. 2, it allows me to really be honest with myself. Because when you start writing, you feel stupid, and you feel kind of dumb, and you're just writing this stuff down, and you're kind of going through the motions. You're just putting words on a page. But as the time goes on, it's really hard to lie to yourself. you know, is really, really, really hard. And people that do it, it's almost impressive. But it is really hard to lie to yourself, but really putting the truth of how I feel and expressing it somehow, because there's not always somebody around to say it to or to talk to or whatnot, especially when you're up at 1:30 in the morning. Nobody else is awake, you know? So getting it out as fast as possible and expressing it in some manner, in some way, is really good. So I do that through writing, through music, when I do go through those things. And then, you know, I think that kind of goes back to being able to, once again, accept the truth of how you feel. You know, I think that's something that's really important, because without doing that, you just bury everything. And it seems good, it seems great. And then it just gets dug up. So you need to really express those emotions. You need to, you know, if that means cry, then cry. If that means talk to somebody, then talk to somebody. If that means write it down, write it down. But you have to let it be known, and you have to let it come out. Because if you keep it all in, you just want to explode. You know, and then your mind goes all over the place, and it's not in the healthiest direction.
Do you guys have any questions?
I do. How do you recognize and avoid the self-destruction? Is that where the writing comes in, or?
Well, I think that's where it comes to the point of, you know, writing it and putting it out, but also writing is really powerful, not because of what you write, but because of what you can do with writing. You can reread it, and you can see it, and you can map it out, and you can be like, do I really believe this, or do I really feel this? How do I feel about this? You can ask even more questions. It's getting it out there and letting yourself feel. And I think all of us know those moments where we feel like there are some times where I'm supposed to go do something with a friend, or we had a plan, and I'm like, I can't do it. Like, I call them and I'm like, hey, I can't do it. And they're like, what's wrong? And I'm like, I don't have it in me to go and do that. And I'm like, at that moment, it's like, we gotta do something. And so I express it through my music. I express it through my writing. But like, you have to talk to somebody. If you have a close friend, you have a significant other, you have somebody that you can express those things to talk to them. And that's something I'm still working on, because sometimes what we feel is that if I express how I feel, then I'm going to burden you. And which reality is more of like, no, that shouldn't be the case. Like, if someone feels burdened by you expressing how you feel, then you need to find somebody else to talk to, and that person shouldn't be there, right? And so, like, if you have this and I have this emotion, and I'm like, hey, I'm gonna lean. Can I get a name? Maria. All right, if I'm gonna lean on you, Maria, and I'm gonna like, hey, I'm feeling this way, and I need to talk about it. I need to express it. For one thing, in these moments, especially as the person who's receiving what I'm filtering out, your job is to not respond. Like, your job is to listen and understand, and to hear what I'm saying. You listen not to respond. You listen to understand where I'm coming from. And then when it gets to the point where I'm like, this person's getting calmer, or this person's feeling more secure here, already you know that they want to have this conversation with you. So don't turn it away, because this person, when you feel like this, these people, I feel like sometimes when people try to talk or intervene, even if it's good advice, if someone's like, I'm feeling this way and I feel like I need to go drink a bunch of alcohol, and you were just to be like, don't drink any alcohol. It's like, at that moment in time, don't say that. Like, at the moment in time, don't do it. Okay? Like, it's just, all right, listen, hear it out, and be like, all right. And then when they get to the point where they let everything go, because you don't want to trap them in. You don't want to make them feel even more, and I'm going to use this word, but worthless than they already are. Like, well, don't do that. Well, I can't do anything right now. And it escalates to everything else and everything else. Just listen and hear. And then on top of that, one thing that you would be really good for is to understand that sometimes this person feels a way and doesn't even know why. And they're coming to you to listen, to maybe help them figure that out. And you can point that out better than they can. That's something I definitely noticed in therapy, is it's like, this person seemed to understand the true reasoning behind my feelings more than I did, and was able to help me find the depths to them and to, I want to say, cure them, but make them better than I even thought I could, you know? So I definitely think, you know, there are different avenues to find to help yourself. But I think one of the best ones, like if you're going to be someone that needs somebody else to listen to, find someone that's willing to listen, just to listen, not to correct you, not to put you down, not to box you in. You know, I know some people think, especially this is popular against people who are very confident, they want to fix everything. It's like, I got to fix you. We're gonna, hey, you tell me this, I'm going to fix this. It's like, no, that's not the case, right? I'm not asking you to fix me right now. I'm asking you to lift me up right now. All right? To fix means I got to work, and I don't have the fight to do that right now. You know, so like, don't fix me, listen to me, and help me heal, and then we can work to fix together. And on top of that, if you fix me, then I'm still broken because it wasn't from me. It wasn't from within myself. Does that make sense?
How old were you when all this started? Do you remember when all the things started?
Which things?
The bad things that happened to you as a child.
I was 7. So for 2 years, 7 to when I was 9, that's when I had a lot of struggles with, all that. And past that, definitely.
Right. But it started at the age of 7 and continued till you were 9?
Yes.
And living with is that when you went to live with your coach?
No, so I went to live with my coach my freshman year of college.
Oh, your freshman year of college.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that happened later on. That were those issues that I had been facing from when I was young, and the demons I was trying to overcome, that's when they came a full head. Because my freshman year, I don't know if you know this, people, freshmen in college, other than being nervous and scared, can also be like, am I allowed to use a bad word? Can be assholes, okay? like they can just be mean. And like, I'm a person, there are only a few things that piss me off. But like, the first thing and foremost is common courtesy. And the reason common courtesy is the first thing that pisses me off, because it's the bare minimum of respect for somebody, right? So if I can't give you the bare minimum of respect, it's the ultimate disrespect, okay? The second is wasting my time. I hate wasting my time. I don't have much of it, even though I think I'm gonna live to 443. I'm not sure on that, I'm working on it, but don't waste it. Don't waste a second of it. And I would probably say like number 3 is judging my character without knowing anything about me, and trying to, put down my character in any form, whether you know me or not. Those 3 things are the things that piss me off. So when I got to college, common courtesy was a really hard one, okay? And like, I would, like now I do this thing where like I hold the door open for somebody and they just walk in. And then I might follow them a few steps and I'll be like, you're welcome. And then I feel better. I made up this scenario in my mind when they said thank you, followed you a few steps and said you're welcome, okay?
Been there.
and so but like that was happening, and already feeling alone. And, especially coming out of high school, you're a star, you won state titles, national titles, and they're like, everyone's like, oh, you're the man, you're this, you're this. But then to have it really play out in the world and to people really started to kind of break me down even more. And I think that was something that allowed other things to kind of resurface that I was trying to push down. Does that make sense?
Very much so.
Yeah.
So from 7 to 9 was where it happened. So did you have difficulties through junior high and high school? And that's where maybe you went into or compensating and then using drugs, alcohol at that time?
No. So in high school, it was more self-harm.
Okay.
And mainly because I was in a household that if I did any of those other things, Mama would have put me down. Mama probably would have killed me before I had a chance to try to do that myself. So I probably couldn't. I didn't have a way to get away with it. But in college, it was really bad, especially my sophomore year. My sophomore year, that's when it hit hard. I know I was doing drugs, I was doing alcohol, and it was affecting my personal life. But on the mat, I went undefeated that whole year until the NCAAs. I was undefeated. No one could beat me. And of course, like there were other repercussions, like there would be times where, I'd be drinking, I'd go to a party before, an event, and I'd, drink my lights out basically. And then the next morning I wake up and I'm 10 pounds over, and I got a duel at like 2:00. And so then I'm running 4 miles to get to practice to lose the weight. And then I run around the building for a couple times, and I go up to practice to have practice to lose the 10 pounds to then compete. And then I win. It may have been ugly, but I won. And then I'd go back, and repeat the whole entire thing. And I just remember like, that was probably the second hardest moment through all of this, was that, because the reason it was 2015, because 2014 I got with my therapist. 2015 was rough because that's when we were really digging in the nitty gritty. And so it was really hard to accept certain things. Like, there were things that like my therapist would say that she would like, that would literally drive me insane in that moment. Like, even like simple as, it's not your fault. It would bring me to tears. It would break me. And I was like, and I would walk out. I was just like, I can't accept that. In my mind, I'm like, I could have done this, I could have done that. Like I could have done so many things. There were sometimes, and like, it was worse, I think, in some cases, because there were some cases where like, I was forced to do things to others, and it's just like, I couldn't forgive myself for that. I actually ran into one of those people while I was in college, and I went and I apologized. And like, and the person couldn't even look me in the eyes. And that literally broke me right then and there. Because it's like, the person that I see in my dreams, I'm that person with them, And then I remember I would go back and I would go to my therapist. I'd tell him about, like, and she'd be like, you were doing what you needed to do to survive. And I'm like, I can't accept that. And it would break me again. And then I would just go back and I would, start doing whatever. I would start doing drugs, I would start doing alcohol, and, even things like sex. I'd go and find someone or something to do, and it would be like, all right, we're gonna go do this, and I'm gonna lose track. I'd do anything to lose focus on that, and I just couldn't do it. And that was probably one of the hardest times in my life, because it's so hard, like, with the truth being right there in front of you and just not able to grasp it. And like, to know, like, and I say this, I know the right, but I just, with all my heart, don't believe you're right. It was another one of those things where, like, you're knowing, like, you're good, but you're not allowed to be that good. Like, it's another thing I had to push away, and I was just like, it's too much. Because if I accept those things, it felt like almost, and as an athlete with our mindsets, I don't know if you know this, elite athletes are crazy, okay? We have crazy mindsets. But with our mindsets where there's no excuses, we're brought up no excuses. You grind, you work, you do your job. There's no excuse. There's no what if. There's no but. It's like, this is how it is. And if you got this result, this is why. If you got this result, this is why. And then to have this point come up in this situation, which is way more complicated, but your whole life be brought up in this mindset of, I am this. This is me. This is what I have to do. A, B. This is where it's going to be. And then to have this come up and it not be that kind of situation, but to have that mindset behind it was very dangerous. It was very hard, where she sees it as the things that you couldn't have done. I saw it as the things I should have. It was the things that I should have done this. I should have done this. And this is why this happened. And I would blame myself, and I would blame my either my family or my friends. I'd find something like this is what I should have done. And like, it just escalates to that point.
Was this somebody you knew?
No. And actually, for the first time I remember I told my parents. My parents didn't believe me when I told them. They didn't believe me. And
that's very hard.
Yeah, that was tough,
Mm-hmm.
And so I remember my mother would just keep asking who was it, and I was like, I don't know who it is. And so but they were like, well, we don't believe you. But I'm like, then why are you asking me who did it? If you don't believe me, then why are you asking? And I remember I went to the school the next day. This is the day after. Went to school, and I was in, what was it? I was in some math class that I wasn't very good at. Let's just put it like that. I was in some math class, and I couldn't, it felt like I was a blur. The whole thing was a blur. Like I couldn't focus. Like, I already suck at math, but now you put this on top of me. Like, I'm going to suck even worse. And I'm like, I'm kind of losing myself in this classroom. My teacher finally comes like, "You okay?" I'm like, "No, I'm not okay. Like, I need to get out of here." And so I ended up going to counseling. And then, obviously, like, I was like, I just need to go home and everything. And I remember my parents then put me in different therapy sessions. And they would put me in one, and they'd be like, "Go here, see this person." And then afterward, I'd come out. And then they'd be like, "All right, what you guys talk about?" And then I'd be like, "Nothing." Or I would lie. They go, "What you guys talk about?" And there was one therapist, this was true. The first session, we just talked about the bass guitar because we were both players. And so I came out, and my parents were like, "What you talk about?" And I was like, "Bass guitar." And they were pissed after that. They were pissed
We're
after
paying
that.
for this.
No, that is exactly what it was. We're paying for this. We didn't pay for you to talk about the bass guitar. So then I remember I went and saw my pastor. My pastor was the first person to know and truly believe me. And he didn't have a reason not to, but I remember he came up to me, put his hand on my shoulder after I told him everything. And I showed him my scars, and I showed him, this isn't easy for me. This isn't a game for me. You think I like being taxied all over the same place and be told to go talk to this person and then interrogate it after and then go, it's not. And you remember I came up with his hand on my shoulder and said, "I believe you." And then switched it around. I left the room. This is the only time I ever saw him. I left the room. My parents came in. I have no idea what that was said in this meeting. But I think whatever was said brought them around, which in a way kind of hurt, honestly. But I remember we went out to the car. My father is in the passenger seat. My mother is in the driver's seat. My father, sorry, this one's hard. My father, turns around and tells me, "Why didn't you tell us sooner? Why didn't you do that?" And he tells me that other people have probably suffered the same thing you have suffered because you didn't say anything.
Oh.
And
It's okay.
oh gosh, no, it's just hard,
No,
And this is,
I understand.
But he tells me that, and he says, "I'm really disappointed in you. I'm really disappointed in you." And I used to hold so much resentment towards my father for saying those things. And I'm not emotional because I'm angry. I'm emotional because I remember how that felt. I love my dad to death. There's nothing I wouldn't do for that man. But I remember I held a lot of resentment towards him for years. And then I had a lot of resentment towards my mother in that same moment because she didn't say anything, And so I remember, there were things there's certain things that I won't tell my dad. I won't tell him how that affected me. And once again, it's not because it's a hiding thing. It's not because of or anything like that. It's because I don't want you to hurt. I don't want you to feel that pain. I don't tell him that some of my night terrors now that I have the same night terror, this night terror where I see these things happening, but they're happening to somebody else because of me. And I'm just sitting there watching, helpless to do anything about it. I won't tell him that. I don't want him to feel that. I don't want him to have to embrace that. I think that it really came ahead, I think, 5 years ago, in 2016, where we, finally sat down and had a talk about things, about things that had been said or done, about those moments. And we kind of cleared the air to the point where I feel like I could talk to my father about anything. And I do. I just can't talk to him about that because I just don't want him to hurt that. And that's something that I carry with me. And I want him to know that, that I want him to feel loved for however long, hopefully a long time on this earth. I don't want him to feel like it didn't need anything wrong, because when I look back, because I've already forgiven him, because like I said, when I look back and I hear these things and I see these things, now all these things that have happened in our life, it'd be really hard for any parent to accept those things. Like my father didn't say those things because that's how he felt. He said those things because he didn't know how to deal with that. Because also I know the man that raised me, and I know that my dad would do anything for me. Literally anything. Work 2 jobs so I could just simply go and do a sport which I tackle people to the ground. You know, like he took on the world for me. So I just think for the situation, it was just really tough for him. You know, and then my mother and I cleared the air. I think it was about 4 years ago. You know, about why our relationship was so rocky, and why like it seemed like I didn't trust her with things or wouldn't say things to her and whatnot. And she's really like, and I told her about that moment, and she was like, you know, and I apologized as well, because I was like, you know, it's just as much like I chose to distance myself in that, and I shouldn't. It was hard for me not to, and I see why I did it. But like, you know, we should have communicated about these things earlier instead of me just walking around being silently angry under the radar. You know, and so I think I went through this whole experience as much as growth needed to be with my family and with you know others in my life. There needed to be some growth within myself as well. And I think if I could have found some of those ways to improve myself as a human being, as a person earlier, even though there was a lot of hardship to get there, I could have handled some situations better or made situations easier for myself along with others in my life. You know, I think there's a certain level of responsibility that comes on to us as people. We all are going to go through hardships, some more than others, some worse than others. You know, I think hardship. You know, like a paper cut for you could be like a machete to you. You know, like it matters how you feel. But there's you know, a certain level of I think of, you know, I say responsibility, maybe that's not the word, but I would say like a responsibility to find yourself and to persevere and to look to better you and the people around you, and to find better ways to handle things. Because I know for me, I didn't handle things the best ways. Like I said, but also at the same time, it's like, well, how do you draw the line? Because there's handling things and finding great ways to handle things, but there's also coping and trying to find ways to maybe put things on hold or at ease for yourself. And I think that the line is simple. And I think it's simply when it becomes destructive to you and those around you, and to those relationships that you have that you want to hold on to and are dearest to you, right? Then you know that you have to, you know, start looking more, I think, within to figure out what you need to better yourself into the future. You know, because the whole reason a lot of these things transpired in my life wasn't because of the outside world, it was because of what was within me. Mm-hmm. And I refused to look within myself because I didn't like what I saw. And so when I finally did, it was hard. And that really how I felt and looked within myself started to transpire on the outside with the acts, with how I was feeling, what I was doing. And so it changed, right? So I think there is a certain level of like, we have to look within ourselves, even though it could be the darkest place you've ever been. And that's really important.
There's a comment for you. It's great to hear someone who is a role model speaking about the fact that trauma affects the best of us, but we might not always see it because we learn to put on the happy exterior or mask.
Yeah, I've kind of lost my mask. I don't wear one anymore. You know, I think in reality, so many things, like honesty, you know, the whole honesty is the best policy. It is the best policy, especially when it comes to the things you're dealing with in your life. There are so many people that need, and this is going to sound weird, but I'll explain it. There's so many people that need others to speak honestly on how they feel. And the reason being is because typically that gives others the confidence to do so themselves. Like a lot of times when we're like, oh, I feel this way, and like, you know, I can give an example. Like, let's say, well, let's say we go to a house party, right? We're all at a house party, having fun or talking to each other and whatnot. And then one person comes up and is just like, I'm going through a lot right now. And like maybe a tear or whatnot. Now, some of y'all might be like, well, you're ruining the party. Like you're a party pooper. What's going on with you? Right? And everything. But typically if one person is being honest and being like, hey, like when people ask you how's your day? How many of you guys answer good and really don't even think about the answer?
Fine.
Yeah, I'm fine. I'm good. Your kids come home from school. How was your day? Good. Goes upstairs. That was it. No thought, no nothing. Like you guys, like we do that. Like we do. I'm guilty of it. I'm not saying that like you guys are, yeah, I'm good. Like I do. No, like we all do it. Like we all do this. And like there's like this cutoff where it's like, oh, good, nothing. I'm not gonna let you. But really, in reality, like if you came and you said that, and like I'm actually, how are you doing? I'd be like, oh, I'm actually struggling with a lot and like feeling it, and like I want to talk about it. Then that person also can be like, typically, if you feel that way, I'm willing to bet a lot of others feel that way too, and they want to talk about it. They want to say something to you. They just don't have the confidence or feel the comfort to do so. You know, I had this talk with actually Air Force. Air Force, I was doing Zoom calls, and I'm talking about the exact same thing about like depression and expressing yourself. Typically, when you were like, oh, I feel this way, other people feel that way too. When I feel sad, they feel sad too. They just wouldn't say it. And so with you being say it and opening that door, it allows for them to have that freedom as well, right? And so when you keep all that bottled in and you're like, you know what, I'm just gonna be like, are you good? I'm all right. You know, I'm all right, it's cool, you know? And now that person who was hoping that possibly was really asking, so you'd be like, maybe so you kind of open up and be like, you know, things have been hard, COVID's weird, quarantine's off, my kids are still at home, I thought I loved them, it's changed over the last few days, I'm not sure what's going on. Now that person's like, yeah, I'm glad you say that, because I felt like I was going crazy because I was feeling the exact same way, and I have all this stuff going on, you know? So people want to express that. It's just typically that comfort level of finding, am I able to, am I allowed to, will it be accepted? So that's why when people, like in generally, like I make an effort, like if someone asks me, how's your day? I'm like, yeah, you know, I'm alive, and it's about how good life is going right now. And they're like, really? I'm like, yeah. Or if someone asks me, or if I ask somebody else, how are you doing? And they say, good. I'm like, good? Why aren't you great? You know, I extend that conversation. I want you to express, like, what are you feeling? What's going on? I want you to talk. And then like, it may seem weird. And some people look at you like, wait, what? What are you doing? Like, you're weird. You're weird, dude. All right?
Do you actually care?
And it's like, well, and sometimes that is the case. And like, some people look at me and they're like, you know, they kind of have that face of like, do you actually care? I'm like, yeah, what's going on? Like, I'm right here. I go to a gas station, like, the clerk's like there. I'm like, how you doing? I'm like, oh, today, I'm doing great. I've done this. How are you? They're like, oh, I'm just all right. Like, you just all right? Why are you just all right? You should be great, man. You look awesome. What's going on? And then they're like, you're weird. It's weird. Human expression is weird, guys. You know, but it's just kind of like, it's like, no, let's talk this out. Let's have these conversations and whatnot. And like, I'm gonna open the door for you. And like, some people may say like, well, it's like, well, then you're taking on everything. It's like, no, I am not having this conversation to take on your problems. I'm having this conversation to listen to your problems and allow you to dump out some of your feelings that probably within yourself aren't really there, but need to come out and get out of the way of what's truly in front of you. And so like, that's what I'm being for you. And that's that. Now, some people are like, I'm at capacity. I can't take anymore. And I get that. But like, that's why I'm like, I'm not trying to take on your problems, right? I'm just trying to listen to what you're saying. Because typically, like I said, I'm just being an avenue for you to sort through your feelings, your emotions, your fight, your whatever, your darkness, your hole, the ground that the hole you dug. I'm trying to help you as much as possible in that instance. And sometimes that's as simple as saying, you know, hi, how are you? You know, that can change somebody's life. We all know that. We all hear that. We've all seen that, but we don't hardly ever do it. We walk down the streets with our heads down, just kind of like, oh, I'm going through my day. I got to go to the store. You know, all this stuff. You know, passing by thousands of people, Like like, especially in COVID, you should want to talk to everybody. We're in quarantine, people. Like, you should be talking to every single person you can, right? That's what you should be doing. But we don't. We put our heads down. We don't talk. We just, you know, we go through our days like we want, like, almost like, and it's funny because we put our heads down to not say anything to this person next to us who probably you maybe want to or need to talk to, or just they need to talk or whatever, but you put your head down and you just go through your day, but then you have the audacity to complain that you're invisible, you feel alone, you don't have these connections. And it's like, it's a two-way street. You know, it goes both ways.
What would you say to someone that is just having a lot of struggle with that self-love for whatever reason, and are using things to fill that void in their life, like food or drugs or alcohol? What is the first step to coming closer to self-love?
Well, I think for me, I stopped letting what I did define me. I think that was a big thing for me. You know, I thought that if I won all the time and I did as best I could, I feel great. And for a period of time, I did. You know, I stopped letting that define me and who I was. And like, I kind of got tired of people calling me, you know, a wrestler. You know, like, that's not who I am. And that never was. And even if I were at one point, it was the worst time of my life. You know, when I was just the wrestler. Like, I think for me, it was just like, I would look in the mirror and I thought about how freaking unique I was. Not in the sense of like, oh, I got talents and I got this. My name is Jaden Michael DeBoy Cox. I was born March 3rd, 1995. And I am the best Jaden Cox there will ever be, because I am the only one there will ever be. Unless we start cloning, in which case I'm all game and this speech is invalid. But I am this person. This is who I am. There will never be another me. So I'm going to try and be the best me that I can be, that I want to be. And on top of that, I don't do things, you know, I do things that give back to me as well, as much as I give to them. Like, I always have this saying, like, if you ever want to get what you want, you have to give what you have, you know? And so it's just kind of like, I always, like, even in wrestling, you know, I push myself to the brink, because out of all of this, I want to be the best that I can be in it. That's what I receive back from it. I'm genuinely nice to somebody else, right? Because I genuinely want that person to feel joy in their life and feel like somebody saw them, right? And that inherently brings joy to me. And that's not even selfish. That's just inherently what happens. If you do something nice for somebody, it's not bad to feel good about it. It's like, hey, just the intention behind it needs to be true. That's what makes it genuine. My intention is I want you to feel good. I want you to have a great life. I want you to have the things that you want, you know? And those things. And I think for me, it was just like literally looking in the mirror and just being like, I'm freaking awesome. There's been, how old is this planet? How old is it? I don't know. I'm not sure. I'm not a historian, but I'm here. I make this planet look good. I'm like the bling of this planet. You are your own bling of this planet. You something. You something. That's where I come at from it. And I started to really, really pick up on that once I started realizing that how, I guess, not worthless I was, because I did. At this point in time, I felt worthless. I felt like I was nothing. And I think what we have to get out of this mindset, that you have to do something to be something. You have to do something awesome to be awesome. You have to become something to be this. And it's like, it's not true. It's a false facade. This reality that you have to win the titles, you have to get the money, you have to do all these things, is not true. It's not true. I think it's amazing how when we're first born, how much people love life. You know, you're first born and they see you as the most amazing thing ever. But then as you grow up, that image of yourself and the way people even treat you or see you, it goes away. It's like, no. Like that moment, first moment you were born to now is still as special and as rare as any other, because there is not going to be another you. There is not going to be another me. It's not going to be any of us. And like that when I started realizing that and I accepted that, I was like, wow, it's pretty cool. You know, I felt like I should have said that like weird, like, oh, that's pretty cool, bro. I don't know why. I felt off.
So when you went and saw your therapist, did they diagnose you with any kind of mental illness, or did they put you on any meds or anything like that?
So when I went to my therapist, I was diagnosed with depression and PTSD, and they put me on Zoloft. I was on Zoloft for a while, but it didn't really work with me. And I don't know why, but like it just kind of, it made me like now how I am. Imagine me, but like move me, like kind of like that. And so like it was kind of off for me. And I actually struggled. That was another thing I struggled with. Like I felt like if I took the meds, that it made me feel like I was even more of a problem. Because if I'm taking the meds, am I really being who I am, or am I being what the meds are making me? Because without the meds, I'm someone completely different. You know, I'm like this person who's sad and down, and this just makes me slow motion and kind of weird, you know. And it makes me so where I'm not thinking about, you know, God forbid, offing myself, you know. But you know, at the same time, I was like, but that's not who I am. I had convinced myself that who I am is just doesn't want to be here anymore, shouldn't be here. And in the case, like, no, that's not who you are. Like that's it's not a system like these things that when we talk about things being inside you. I kind of want to preface this because sometimes some people are like, well, you say it's inside of you. You're like, yeah, it's inside of me, but it doesn't make me. You know, it doesn't make me who I am. And the beautiful thing is like we choose what makes us who we are. Is our choice. Like that's something I had to learn while even being on meds. That was like this is a choice. These things I have control over. Like I can control this. You know, and yeah, this over here, it didn't change who I was. It was just assistance in the choices that I wanted to make and helping me get into where I wanted to be. You know, and I think that was something I had to really work on, you know, changing my perspective on myself, who I was, what it really meant to be, you know, somebody, what it meant to know who we were, or to figure that out. It wasn't just, you know, oh, you know, you got some problems and we're gonna give you some pills and figure that out. Like there was even still a whole mental way of thinking that I had to figure that out as well.
So you're currently taking any medication?
Currently, no. Currently, I am medication free. I'm happy to say that. But you know, I definitely still have my struggles. You know, I definitely I'm not free of depression. I'm not free of my PTSD. I simply have I go through my advice, the writing, all the stuff. I know what's coming ahead. I still talk with my therapist, not the same one, but with a therapist. And I'm always looking to get better and striving to be better. No, currently I'm not on any meds. And so, I mean, I think that's the way that you know, for me, I think maybe for me, like I'm a little like, that shows progression, you know, like that's cool. And I think it does. You know, but I think for me, I've been fighting this battle for a long time, and getting to where I am, I've understood where I'm at. I've understood where I've been, and I understand where I want to go. And I think that that's kind of allowed me to be a little bit more free of not being on meds and being able to hey, I do know I need to talk to a therapist. I do know that, you know, writing helps, music helps, all this stuff helps. I do know my signs and my stuff. Like there are certain things I know that I can't do. Or that I shouldn't say can't do, but that freak me out. But you can't guess my worst fear.
Spiders.
No, spiders are kind of cool.
Failure.
No, it's not. I'll give you a crack at it.
Your biggest fear?
You can't say it with me. You already know what it is. It's going to sound stupid when I say it.
Oh, no, that's not sound stupid.
My biggest fear is being in a room with a bunch of people with the lights off. That's my biggest fear. That's my biggest fear. If I go into a movie theater and we go and sit, I typically start sweating. Like it freaks me out. Or like I want to sit in the back, or I want to sit on the side. Like I don't want someone, because you know everything. But that goes back to when I was like a kid. You know, like that was like that's stuff that kind of happened. You know, so it's like I don't want that to be the case. So like that's my worst fear. So if you want to get punched in the face, turn off the lights and be in the same room.
Try
I will
again.
punch anyone. I don't care who you are. I mean, I love God. I love Jesus too. I'll punch them both in the face if they do that. I swear, okay? I swear I will be there.
So another question, a lot of the people in this challenge self-sabotage themselves with food, with eating. And a question was asked, has he ever had any emotional eating issues? And if so, how did he overcome them?
To be honest, I haven't had many eating issues.
And this is someone that actually joined a little bit later, so they may not have heard the beginning of your story. So.
Okay. I haven't really had much eating issues, other than the fact when my coach gets mad because I order a pizza instead of having the salad and we're cutting weight. Other than that, I haven't had that bit of an issue, but I do know like about like self-sabotage, like pushing things away that are actually good for me, or accepting things that are bad for me, that I was like, you know, for a moment of, you know, I would say false bliss, you know? And so like, you know, I talked about this earlier where like things like the bad things coming in were like, you know, drugs or alcohol, or like I said, sex or anything really, anything that would get me off of where I was, just for a little bit, those kind of things, like I would take it. And like that would actually, and in reality, it's crazy because like those things, like I would take in to free me, and yet those things, when I went to do the things that I wanted to do, would imprison me. You know, do you know what it's like to go and wrestle another 200-pound man who's well trained and wants to rip your head off when you're hungover from the last 3 days? It's terrible, and you got drugs in your system and all that. Like it's the worst thing ever. And so, like, and even like with things that are good, like when we talked about earlier with the working out and stuff, like working out, yeah, it can help, but it can't become a solution, right? And then, because then you start thinking like, oh, I'm just gonna go out and I'm gonna do, you know, I'm gonna give you guys a good number, 400-pound bench press. You know, I'm gonna bench press 400 pounds all the time. I believe you. I so believe you. I'm trying to be genuine. I believe you. Yes. But you know, I'm gonna go out and just bench 400 pounds every time, and that's great. You reach 400 pounds. But then the real thing is that you self-sabotage, because then you pushed away the real problems. You pushed away the truth, you know, which is why, as I say, like, prepare yourself to accept your truth. All right. Well, prepare yourself for the truth so you might better accept it, right? Like, the truth of the matter is that there's something that needs to be dealt with, and there's something that we're dealing with, or there's something within myself that I need to change, or I want to maneuver, and I need to go through these steps to do so. You know, it's crazy sometimes, because I think some people, they make goals in their life. Everyone has goals. We all do. Some guys' goals is to eat, you know, 5,000 chicken wings in one sitting. And like some people's goals are to win the Olympic medals and whatever your goal is. There's a lot of people that say a lot of things, but never ever either took the steps, both physically, mentally, or even spiritually, to reach them, you know, to validate it, to be like, I'm going to do this. You know how many people I hear on a daily, you know, especially on I got my Instagram, I got Facebook, I have Twitter, people hit me up there, DM me, and just be like, and they'll ask this question. This is the question I'll ask. What does it take to do what you do? What do I have to do to do this? And I just get asked that question all the time in camps. It's my least favorite question. Because in reality, those people are looking for two answers. They're looking for one, and like, hey, you do this one thing, you're going to be great. And then two, they don't ask because they want to know the answer. They ask because they hope that you're going to answer with something very easy. They want me to say, you know, do things I've done, or to get through things I've gone through. Just got to sit on your couch, eat pizza, and love whatever TV show you're watching. This is how she got to 400-pound bench press. But that's what they want you to do. They don't want to hear about, you know, going so hard on the bike that you almost pass out. You know, they don't want to hear about going up Manitou Springs here. It's 2,744 steps. They don't want to hear about you going up there in 25 minutes and then doing a push-up for every step down to the point where your hands are bleeding. You still got to get up the next day and go to practice with barely no skin, and you got to hold this trap bar that digs in and rips it off. Like, they don't want to hear that. They don't want to hear how many times like I've had to get this surgery and I've had to do this. They don't want to hear those things. They want you to say, you know, oh, it's just you know, you just shoot the shot 5 times a day. You'll be fine. Like, no, it takes more than that. It's a grind. It's like literally, like, everyone's for their goals until self-sacrifice comes into play. You know, like some people, and that's with everything, you know, even just life. Everybody's for something happening until it comes to self-sacrifice. You know, how much do you really care about this? Do you care about it enough to sacrifice your time? Some people are like, yeah. And some people are like, no, I can't sacrifice time. I don't even have that. What the heck is that? I can't sacrifice any of it. You know, do you care about this more than, enough to sacrifice your money? Do you care about enough to sacrifice your comfort? Do you care about this more enough to sacrifice even, like, you know, quality time with family? Like, how much do you really care about this? You know, this one reason why I love wrestling is because it's not just that 6 minutes that you're fighting this person. You know, you're fighting every sacrifice they gave up. You're fighting all the hours in the room. You're fighting all the times they didn't get to go to the birthday party. You got all the times that they didn't get to go to a holiday. You're fighting that, you know, maybe they missed the birth of their child or a nephew or something. You're fighting everything that person is and everything they couldn't be, even though they wanted to more than anything. Like, you're fighting all of someone in that 6 minutes of being there. And so, like, you know, if you have a goal, I think you need to be honest with yourself of how important is this to you. You need to sit down and really think about this. What am I willing to sacrifice to give? Everybody would love to do handouts. You know, everybody's all for, you know, fighting for something until it comes back to be, what is it in you that you would be willing to give for it? You know, like everyone has an answer for what are you willing to gain. Well, what's your answer for what you're willing to give? You know, I think that's really important.
Yeah, there's 220 something people. I haven't done the final count yet, but over 220 people that have expressed a goal of healthy lifestyle, and that's our motto: is how bad do you want it?
Yeah, you gotta have that. I love that motto. How bad do you want it? What are you willing to give? Yeah, and I think that's what you think about. You know, I remember 2018. I had a friend get hurt at a wrestling camp, and he could never wrestle again. Pretty much. I mean, at least that's what I've been told. He's still fighting for it, but you know, and I remember, like, stuff like that changed my perspective in my training completely. Because as soon as I got back, I remember I was at his bedside when he was in the hospital. He couldn't talk, couldn't respond to me or nothing, and I was like, I'm in tears. And I remember I grabbed his hand and I promised him I'd win a world title. I made a promise right there in front of God and everybody that I was going to win a world title that year. And that was probably like a bad year to wish that, because I was ranked 9th, and it wasn't looking good. And then, like, the first rounds, somebody that beat me 2 or 3 other times previously. And but I remember my training in that moment, like in those moments where I would start to feel the tiredness, my comfort would get tested, feel a little woozy, feel a little sick. I remember, like, I would say almost like, what would, I won't use the name, but what would so-and-so give to be able to do this right now? To be on this bike and grind, to run the sprints, to take shot after shot after shot, to sprawl and sprawl and sprawl, to feel the exhaustion that I was feeling. What would he give? And the answer to that was everything. And so with that being the answer, I had to give everything. There was nothing, anything short of everything was a disservice and disrespect to him. You know, like, that's how much that meant to me. And so I saw that, and, like, that put in this new drive in me that I still have now to this day. It almost took me to a whole nother level of my thinking, like, how much more I'm willing to give for the things that I want. And that really is kind of where, like, the model of, you know, sometimes you have to give everything you have to gain everything you want, really came from. And so, you know, that's just what I continue on day in and day out now.
Can I ask you, every time you tell your story and share it, do you feel like a little part of you heals?
I guess that's tough, because if I'm going the honesty, honestly, every time I tell my story, it scares me.
Mm-hmm.
You know, a part of me's scared.
Maybe not being accepted, or
I think that's part of it. But I couldn't explain it really. It's like something within me, like my heart feels heavy or hollow. Like it's heavy and hollow at the same time. It's really confused. It's probably how you got this one of the plates up. It's weird. but it is. It's like it's heavy and it's hollow and it's scary. And every time I'm about to tell it, freaks me out. But I think what gives me, I guess, strength, what helps, is not necessarily telling my story, but why I tell it. You know, I don't tell it to heal myself, and it doesn't, and I don't think it really necessarily does heal me to tell it over and over and over again.
mm-hmm.
And maybe that's just my perspective. But what does heal me is knowing that with my pain and with my story and with the things that have happened in the past, I think if I can help somebody else get over theirs, I think that's something that that does help me heal a little bit. Like, there are parts of me that I think I've accepted that I can't ever get back. There's some things that I can't change. I can't go back in the past and stuff. But what I can do is better my future. And not only mine, but I can reach out to so many others, you know? And so I think that that's kind of more of my angle when I speak to people.
I want to tell you that I'm very glad I came tonight. I can relate to you very well. I have a very similar situation, and it's a struggle.
For sure.
It's a very big struggle. It's a real struggle, and I don't sleep either.
Hey,
So,
9 hours are the best. Okay.
Yeah.
I'm just saying.
and so when you're thinking you're awake at 1:30, there is somebody else here who's awake at 1:30.
See, that's what it was. I was just calling the wrong people. I was just calling the wrong people. I was like, oh gosh, man, no one's up. No, yeah, it's a real thing. I mean, is it weird? I'm gonna ask you something.
Sure.
Okay, because I assume I'm not the first person you've told that to. All right. So, is it weird that like I would feel wrong if I said, I'm sorry that you went through that?
No.
Okay, I was making sure.
No.
All right.
Not
I have
at
a
all.
reason why. I specifically was not gonna be like, oh, I'm sorry to hear that. Like, I have a reason why, but I wanted to make sure like that was something. Okay, all right. We'll probably have to talk afterwards.
Yeah.
But, all right.
So we have one of our participants from Canada.
Canada. Tori. What you talking about?
You mentioned injuries and surgery. As a Marine who got blown up during a deployment, I struggle with my physical injuries. But the mantra that has been engraved on my brain in the corps was improvise, adapt, and overcome. 11 years, 192 surgeries later, I'm just starting to get out of the wheelchair and use the walker to get around. Any suggestions for staying motivated to keep going? I also have mental health, trauma, abuse, PTSD.
Yeah. Well, I like those things. We actually, USA Wrestling's actually partnered with the Marines. So it's actually cool. We've done a few camps with them and stuff. The only thing I would say, can you read off those branches for me that he follows, the mantra?
Improvise, adapt, and overcome.
Right. You know, and maybe this dabbles in overcome. I'm not sure. But I would also put maybe debrief, you know, because sometimes when I think about the mantra, and I've talked with some of the Marines I've talked to at least, it seems like the overcome part changes for them. Where it says overcome means don't deal with, means leave behind, means move on. when really where they're at isn't done yet. You know, the things they have to go through, whether it be emotionally, physically, whatever, hasn't happened. And so I think that would be kind of like important as well. But also I think really, and you know, I'm going to say one, congratulations for where you're at and for the things you've overcome to get to this point. You know, I don't know what injuries or surgeries you've had, but it's a blessing that you got to where you are right now. I think the things are, one is to know where you want to be, where you want to go. It's a lot harder to get through things like a surgery, like a recovery and stuff like that, when you don't have a set, this is where I want to get to, this is where I want to go. I've had plenty of friends who are wrestlers who, you know, all they know is wrestling, and then they get an injury, they're out for 6 months and they have no idea who they are. They're just kind of lost, and they're just like they don't have a goal to fight for, to go and strive for something. And I think that's something for everybody really, and particularly when it comes to injuries, like always have something to strive for in front of you, whether it's like, I want to be here, and I want to be here, and now I want to be at this point, I want to be at this point, and I want to do it this good, I want to be the best at here. So always having that. And I think a part of it too is don't let, if things happen or you have a backtrack, don't let things, use this, I should say it like this actually, use this as a moment to actually find other avenues of the human that you really are. You know, don't look at it as a moment that I can't do this. Look at it as a moment as you can do. You know, that's what you say, you know, adapt. And, you know, a lot of times, you know, like I said, the athletes, they get hurt. They know who they are as an athlete, and that's it.
Not as a person.
Not as a person. They don't know, do I like to read when I'm not doing it? What TV shows do I like? You know, is Netflix on? What's my Netflix account password? You know, like they're lost. You know, so take this as a moment to kind of see like how much more there is to you, and like because a lot of people see these things as this is what's taken away from me, instead of what this has really added or opened you up to. But I think it's amazing. You know, I want to say also thank you for your service and what you've you know, done for this country as well. I definitely have a deep respect for that.
Another question is kind of along the lines of what Debbie asked. Does telling your story help you heal? And this person asked the same thing, but I have a hard time telling people my story because I break down every time. Is there a way that you found that gets a little bit easier so that you can share and you can debrief?
I think that for me, I would say the simple answer is that I just kept doing it. I kept saying what had happened. But I think first and foremost, I wouldn't have been able to do it if I hadn't gotten comfortable with really accepting it for myself first. You know, because it really comes down to that comfort, to that acceptance, to that, you know, in overcoming that fear, which to the point now, like, I'm sorry, like, I don't care if you accept me or not. More than likely, because we're on Zoom, I don't even know what you look like right now. So I you know, whether you accept me or not, it's beside the point. You know, but, you know, I had to accept it myself. I had to embrace it myself. If I can't embrace it, then how can I expect anyone else to? How can I tell this in a way that will allow people to step into my shoes? That's the real point of me telling the story, for you to step into my shoes and see my story, and to almost to the point where I want you to understand and feel what I felt, see what I've seen, and not for a pity party, but in this case particularly to help you. Whatever reason I'm telling you this story, that's the way I'm trying to put you into my shoes and have you see in that light. And that's my goal. And like I said before, telling the story doesn't necessarily heal me. And for some people it does, and maybe for me, I just don't, because I see it as like, there's parts of me that I will never get back. There are things that I cannot change. I cannot go back to the past. But what I can do is I can change the future, and I can help someone else change their present, right? And that's really the goal, what I'm looking to do, And I think when I see that, when I get a message on my DM saying, hey, I saw your Flow Wrestling documentary, which is all about this actual story, you know, like that helped me. That helps me heal. That heals me. You know, when I see somebody on Twitter hit me up and like, hey, like, you know, I heard you speak here and tell your story. I just wanted to let you know that it helped me like either avoid a situation, or it helped put things in perspective, or it gave me the courage to go out and find help. That heals me. That brings me healing and joy.
Is it okay to break down?
Yeah, you should break down. If you feel it, you should. I totally believe you should. Now, obviously, do it healthily. Like, I'm not saying break down like, hey, I have a Hummer and I'm just gonna run it off the road. No, like, don't hit other. Like, no, like I definitely think you should. You should. Like, and I don't even know why it's called breaking down. It's not even really it's a terrible. We have the worst words for things. Like, it's horrible. Like, oh, you're breaking down. It's like, no, like no. I would more call it like releasing. Like, because sometimes, like when you quote unquote break down, it's sometimes it's a good thing. Like, it's a break. You're breaking through. You know, like I'm doing the right things. I'm taking the right steps. I'm able to accept something. You know, acceptance looks a lot different in a lot of different ways. Okay, it's not always like, cool, I got that. Like, sometimes it is just like you know, sobbing. You know, maybe next to your couch, you just walk in from work and you're just like crying, or like sometimes it's different. You know, it's just it's different for everyone, and it comes in different ways and forms all over the place. A breakdown. How dare you?
Another question from a parent. Aiden asked is, as a parent, I would love to hear some things that maybe were signs that your parents missed. I understand they are human too, but also would love to hear what I might be extra cognizant about parenting with my own children.
Well, I think you're going to have me go on a rant. What's his name? Aiden?
It's a she, Aiden. Yes.
Aiden, she. Oh, sorry. Aiden. All right. So I got to be, you're about to make me go on a rant here about parenting. And some people might not like it, but if you don't like it, it's probably because you're on the wrong side of it. There are some parents who are parents. There's some parents that are parents by obligation, not and by obligation and title, not by you know. And here's the difference, you know. A parent by action. I'll give the same scenario we did before, where your child walks in. You ask the child, "How was your day?" They say, "Good." They go up to the room. They play their Xbox. They do their homework. They come down for dinner. You guys eat. Don't want to talk. Oh, how'd that test go? Great. Go back. And the cycle continues over and over and over again. That is a parent by title or obligation. That is what it is. It's you're came from you. That's it. All right. How's your day? And your kid says, "Good." And you know, by just the way they said it, I need to talk to this. Wait, you need to tell me what's going on. You know, like, let's talk. And you need to open those lines of communications. You need to let them know there are those lines of communication. Not just saying, "Hey, you can do whatever," but being like, "Hey, I'm going to go out of my way to come." You know, they're kids and some teens, and they might be like, "Have time to talk to them." Just pick them in the face. You know, you want to go and engage in those conversations. Me, I stopped talking. I just stopped talking. I wouldn't talk to anybody. I remember my mother did an interview, and she said, "Tell us," and you guys won't believe this either, but what's something that would surprise people about me? And she said that he's extremely shy. I wasn't always that, but like I just wouldn't talk to anybody. I wouldn't say anything to anyone. I was very one word, like wouldn't look anyone in the eyes, wouldn't do anything like that. I had wrestling. That was the only extracurricular activity I did. I didn't go hang out with friends. I didn't talk about my friends. I didn't really, you know, in my opinion, I didn't really think I had any. So I was just kind of like on my own. And so, I think those are things to pay attention to. Even like emotionally changing, like, maybe I'm just super angry and I can't understand why, or I'm super sad and I can't figure that out. I can't work through it. And so, or, really confusion. My schoolwork plummeted. I mean, I was already a bad student, but the way they plummeted before, it was bad, man. It went from, you were a bad student, I shouldn't say bad. You were like, okay, you were average, maybe a little bit above, to like, no, you were terrible. Like, I remember my freshman, like, so bad to like my freshman year of high school. The only reason I was able to compete to win that state title was because the grade report didn't come out until the week after. I was so bad. Like, it was just really bad. And it continued on for years. But paying attention to that, I think, but really it's just like, there's a lot of things that could be changed with, especially how kids are today, if parents would take the time to talk to them and actually, guide them, not just take care of them. Yeah, well, I feed my kid. I'm a good mom. I feed my kid. I put clothes on their back. I give them a place to sleep and everything like that. And well, so do skunks. Skunks do the same thing. So do birds. They're literally animals who are less intelligent, who do more, like, for their kids than some parents do. Like, your job isn't only to take care of them, it's to guide them, and is to be a part of their life and involved in their life, not just out of my presence, but out of my involvement. And so you have to go out of your way and be like, hey, how are things going? I want to talk to you. Like, let's do this. And if they get annoyed with it, so what? So what if they get annoyed with it? How many of you guys right now who got annoyed with your parents wish you actually talked to your parents more? So then don't put them through the same things. We've been through their life. Don't make the same mistakes, So talk to them, Dads, say those terrible jokes, Moms, be overprotective, whatever. But be involved, I think that's a huge thing. And don't think that what they're doing, is like the things that they're doing, the results that you're seeing is the full picture. Like that's not the case. In their friend's relationship or the friend's relationship, your relationship is the one that's supposed to matter. Yes, they're gonna. I know that psychology and all that stuff. They're gonna cling to people like them. They're gonna cling to their friends. They're gonna do that. That's great. That's wonderful. You still have to guide them. You still have to be a part of it, right? So be a part of it.
If you suspect something, what is the best way to approach your child, do you feel? What would have opened? I mean, I know every child is different, but how do you approach your child when it's best way to do that?
Well, I think, and that's hard, especially if the foundation of communication isn't already there. If you don't have a foundation of communication, then you are going to get stonewalled because they don't feel this. They don't feel like they can come to you. That's why I've said this many times. Like whenever if I'm ever blessed to have kids, like we're gonna have I think this conversation needs to be had. The conversation is this: there are bad people in the world, and if something happens to you that you don't want to happen, tell somebody. Tell me. Tell your mother. Tell someone. And I promise you, no matter what, I will believe you. I'll be there for you. But I think on top of that, it's not just telling them like that kind of fluff either. You also have to be honest and tell them tell them why this is important. And the why is that the same way there are consequences for your actions, there are consequences for your inactions. If you don't come and tell me, I don't know if I can help you. I don't know if we're going to be able to get whoever did this or whatever happened. So I think first and foremost, we got to have these difficult conversations because they're not happening. I mean, they're not. They need to be happening. Like kids know. I went to a talk with fifth grade class about not doing drugs. Those kids named drugs I didn't even know existed. They know. They know stuff. Like they're not stupid. And it's getting younger and younger, of which the intelligence of these kids of knowing things that we didn't know until later on. And so we need to have these conversations now. And if I were to approach it, I think first off, believe them. Believe them. Because it's hard enough to bring it up. Mm-hmm. It's hard enough for them to, and to open, almost reopen a wound, you know, especially depending when they're telling you, you know. But believe them and be willing to do what's necessary for them, not for you, but for them. I think that's something my parents kind of did wrong. It's like they were so shocked and they didn't want to deal with this pain so much that they did what was best for them and were doing things for them rather than doing things for me, right? And so I think that in this case, you know, that's very important to put them in the forefront and to see their needs, not yours, you know, and do things for what they need or the way they desire things to kind of be done. Now, obviously, there's the obvious things you gotta do. Yes, I gotta report it. Yes, I gotta, you know, we may need to talk to somebody. So, and then kind of let them navigate that. When they want to talk, they'll talk. You know, you can ask, hey, you want to speak? You want to say anything? That's great, but don't press them. And please don't move them don't take them to therapy just so you can know what they talked about, so you know what happened. It's not your job to know the details. It's your job to know that right now, your child needs help through the details, you know? So I think, you know, no matter what, just always keep in mind that in that moment, there's going to be a lot of pain for you. And I understand that as a parent. Someone hurt your child. And I get that. But in that moment as well, it isn't about you. And it isn't about revenge. It isn't about fix it quick. You know, it's about doing what's right by the victim and doing what's right by those who's hurt, who's truly hurt, you know, who's been carrying a burden heavier than you can even imagine.
Thank you so much. I gotta take my son, but
You're good.
It was great.
No, very nice to meet you.
Red is the Marine that taught you.
Charlotte. Yeah.
That's really,
I don't hear
so I appreciate you taking the time to do this. You have a very powerful message.
No, thank you. Thank you guys for having me. Sandy hit me up about was it 2 weeks ago? Was it 2 weeks ago, Sandy? Did he hit me up?
Yeah.
I think it was, and I didn't respond for about another week because I was in Austin, then Ohio, then I was in Nebraska, back to Ohio. I was all over the place. So, but thank you guys for having me. Thank you guys for being here and listening to my message. And you know, I hope to just help whoever. But you know, I want you guys know I genuinely say this to everyone, but I love you. You are loved, and you're awesome. So be awesome. Yeah.
That was so great. And just wanted to tell everybody, Jaden is just an amazing human being. I've had the pleasure of knowing him for a few months now. And he's just got a powerful message. He's incredibly passionate about just helping people and just making them feel important, making them feel valuable, making them feel loved. And so really appreciate your time.
Thanks for that.
Yeah. So, and this Zoom will be available. We'll put it in the private Facebook page for you to watch, and feel free to reach out and let Jake know how much you appreciate his time tonight.
You're right. I definitely should have chosen the other two.